Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again. It's Thursday night, and this is the Thursday agenda. Thank you, one and all, for joining me tonight. This is our, of course, weekly program at 8 p.m. And whether you're joining us on NTN television or whether you're joining us on Facebook Live, from the PPPC page, from my Facebook page, from the Vice President's page, welcome all. Just before we get started, as I would always do, I would encourage you to share the link. You could post it on your Facebook page or share it with your friends so that they may join us if you know that they may be interested in what we are discussing and what we are speaking about tonight. Tonight we're just running just a tad later than usual, but happens sometimes. And I want to say good night to everybody. I want to say good night to my son, who I believe has special permission to be up just a little later than normal. But so just give you a little opportunity to share the link around so that we may be joined by as many people before we get started. Now, the first thing I want to start with this evening, as we did last week, we spoke at some length about the salary increases and the basis upon how it came about. And of course, you know, last week there was an announcement of an 8% salary increase in the public service. But today, there has been even more news in that regard. We all know that what has happened is this morning, His Excellency the President announced more measures of increase for members of the police force, members of the fire service, members of the army. So the discipline services, which we refer to as usually, they have received substantial improvement in their salary, in addition to, and this is important that you remember this, this is in addition to the 8% salary increase that everyone else will get. Now, you may have noticed that what this was, as we had said last week, this is an attempt by the government to improve as best it could the circumstances of the public service and to include the pay, the remuneration, the salaries of these people. Now, in most cases, you will notice that the larger or the greater increase are for the lower level of the ranks in the police and the army and in the fire service. You would notice that that is so. But you have to understand that that is because, so they've not only been given an increase, they have moved, they have adjusted the salary scale in the disciplined forces. The government has very effectively increased the salary that would be received not only now but in the future, and the baselines have all moved. Now, that's very important, because what it does is for the young people who are coming into the discipline forces, they can expect a better salary and a better reward. Now, it is important that we re-emphasize and we understand. We all would like to say that the government should be doing this and they should increase salaries by 100% or all these ridiculous things that you say. But we have to live in the real world, ladies and gentlemen. We have to accept that Guyana may be on the road to prosperity. We are definitely a country with potential. We are definitely in the path from 2020. We are headed on an upward trajectory that is like no other place on earth. But we have still got to fund all the infrastructure development that is required. We have still got to try to, while we're doing that, we're trying to improve the livelihood and the salaries of people at the same time. So you can't do all of it at the same time, and you have to understand. And don't be fooled, and don't get dragged into this idea, well, oh, now that we have oil, we should be getting this. And we say things like Guy Dubai and all of these things. This is not realistic. People who want to be facetious and people who want to be irrelevant and say irrelevant things just for the sake of saying it will say those things. Yes, it means that Guyana is in a better position than it was before. Guyana is in a better position today than it was at the beginning of 2020. Guyana's outlook and the forecast, the economic forecast of Guyana is very positive. But don't get carried away to say, well, oh, now that we are rich, we must do this. We're not yet rich. Understand that. We are on the upward trajectory, but we are at the bottom of it right now. We have to manage resources so that we may fulfill our potential, so we may get to the area and to the level of prosperity that we would like to be in, so that we would live in a country that is so developed that we would all be very proud to be here. Don't get me wrong, I know, like me, most of you are very proud to be Guyanese and here, but we would all like better. But it can't happen overnight. Understand that. There's no person said, at least not on the PPP side, that this would happen overnight. They said that these were the things that would be delivered now in these 5 years. That's what the manifesto was about. So don't be fooled to say, well, oh, we must be able to do this. We're not. We're not there yet. We've got to work very hard. And there are several things that can knock us off that path. So we've got to fight to stay on that path. And we have got to take our opportunity for development and to further improve the lives of people. We've got to take it very seriously. But it wouldn't happen in one fell swoop. It'll be incremental. And as I said before, we have to understand the framework upon which development is built. It is built upon the revenue that the country earns. But we hope to earn a lot over the next 20 years. We hope to earn increasing amounts over the coming years and the coming months. But until we're at that stage, we can't spend as if we are at the end of the development phase. We are at the beginning of the development phase. And therefore, our expenditure would be similarly reflected. I can't help but comment about what I've seen from the opposition and the opposition members on social media and making statements. And there's a young lawyer in the opposition who is saying, what could this increase do? And what could the increase do? Who needs that? What can you buy for this further 8 and 10 and 15% increase that people, that members of the armed forces have? To say that is so out of touch with what realities in Guyana are. Of course, it is an incremental increase. But you have to understand that for people who are in difficult straits and who are in difficult circumstances, every little bit helps. And the appreciation that you saw all over Facebook today with police, men and women at various stations and locations jumping up for joy, only that alone should be enough to make you realize that these hard-working members of the disciplined forces are grateful for that help. They are grateful for that increase. They are thankful for it. They're clearly happy. Of course, everybody wish it would be more, but you could only, a government, any government, can only afford to pay what it can afford to pay. It must be responsible about its obligations. And this is part of the leadership of President Ali. He stresses that we must move forward, but we have to do so responsibly. We have to deal with a myriad of issues, short term, medium term, long term. But you've got to address them all simultaneously and do the best you can. So ladies and gentlemen, we comrades, we have to understand the underpinnings of what happened today. What happened today was monumental. The salaries, the adjustments happened upwards. The salary increases that took place is in addition to the 8% that the rest of the civil service, the public service gets. And these people, the ones who are at the lower end, the less senior people, the most junior of ranks, they got the biggest increase because, again, what that does is that encourages recruitment, but it also rewards the younger persons who are there so that they will be encouraged to remain with the discipline services. So for those who criticize, I say that is in poor taste, it is utterly nonsensical, and you don't appreciate the realities of the country in which you live. You cannot seriously be criticizing any increase in salaries. We could all sit and wildly plot numbers out of the air about how much increase, but we've got to then balance that against the income of the country, against the potential of what is to come in for the country, against what it will cost to do it. Now, bear in mind that this is just one measure, as we had said last week. There was the removal of taxes to start with. There was the grants, the various cash grants for COVID, and then there was school grants. There were all those grants. There were pensions. Pensioners received assistance. School children. All of these things happened in the past 2 years. This is now another branch on that tree towards improvement that the government is trying to deliver to the people of Guyana. So the adjustment in the salaries that took place was well received, undoubtedly, across from everything that I saw on social media. It was well received. The young officers were very happy. They celebrated as they should, and it's reasonable to expect that they would have celebrated so. And to those who criticize, and to those who say such nasty words about them, there is no place for such criticism. And it just demonstrates your inability to comprehend what's going on in Guyana now. Now, the second issue that I wish to raise today is related to an issue that we had raised before. The AFC, the APNU AFC coalition, they continue, and their various acolytes and cabals continue to race bait in Guyana, hoping that they will trigger social unrest, hoping that they will deceive people into believing these things. Now, most recent among this has been statements that are made by Mr. Saul, who I understand to have been a member or an officer at Central Housing and Planning under the last administration. And he says such terrible things. To issue a letter that Guyana is on, the government of Guyana is pushing Guyana to the brink of civil unrest. Now, I don't know Mr. Saul, but he lives in a different Guyana. He lives in a different world. Unless he doesn't understand the meaning of the words which he used, or unless he lives in a place where saying what is true and saying what is accurate is irrelevant. These words are only stated and put here to excite people's minds in a negative way. They have no bearing on reality. And to say that the payments of the government are skewed, the payments to fishermen and to sugar workers, he might be surprised to know that in the sugar industry all races work. And in the fishing industry certainly all races work. And in the areas where those industries are located, all races exist. The microeconomies of those areas are dependent upon those industries working. And you have to understand that. But clearly you don't. And this race baiting should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. And the people who follow this must be exposed. We can't adopt an approach. And I say, my personal view, we can't adopt an approach to ignore it, that everybody knows it's a lie, so don't need to worry with it. No, when people do it, you must call them out for it. Pushing Guyana to the brink of civil unrest, using words like about race and racial segregation, which Guyana is he living in? You see, it's easy to do these general sorts of statements without any actual proof. You give anecdotal proof that you know this happened, that you know that happened, and this, but you have no actual proof. And then that clown, that keyboard puppet in New York follows it with the same thing. Saying things like Guyana's in a state of apartheid. He understands what apartheid is. He knew what apartheid was. And he says these things to just excite people's curiosity. He's looking for attention. And he's looking for attention at the expense of his country, the country he claims to be from. And with all these false things, these people who do this must be held to account. We cannot allow and continue to allow persons to keep race baiting the nation, to keep lying with outright lies, unsubstantiated nonsense, and repeat it and keep going on. We cannot allow that to happen. And we cannot allow that to take root, because you see, in these situations, we must understand, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, we must understand the change that occurs when these people feed the underground with this. It's not a change of flipping on a light switch. It's a gradual stage by stage process where the belief by those idiots is if they say it enough, it will start to resonate. More people will say it. And if more people say it, it is true, notwithstanding it is false. So that is the strategy. And of course the overall strategy is they want attention. They want attention for themselves, for whatever reasons, but they want attention for themselves. They're not and should never be seen as leader of people. They should never be allowed to get away with it. They must always be held accountable. For someone to say that the Guyana is on the brink of civil unrest, don't live in Guyana. They have no concept of what is going on in Guyana. Guyana is on the brink of an economic takeoff, which, well, we're not on the brink, we're on an economic trajectory that is like nowhere else in the world. The economy is better, development is everywhere, improvements are everywhere. Everywhere you go, roads are being built. I don't understand how people can, in the face of all of that, when they were in government for 5 years and did nothing, except try to steal an election, and we go through this process with that. How could that be realistic? How could we allow them to get away with it? We must call them out for it. We must not allow them to deceive people. We must not allow them to get away with a false narrative. We must not allow them to paint a picture that is untrue, so that those who are not familiar with Guyana will believe this nonsense. We must call them out on every occasion, every single occasion. Now, another issue that we have to address, and if it weren't, I mean what it is, it's downright comical. So last week we spoke a little bit about the AFC, and the AFC saying that they will not contest the elections. And I mean, if they don't want to contest the elections, so be it. But they said they weren't contesting the elections because of a bloated list. As I pointed out, this is the same list. And they now made statements about fingerprint verification. Well, they said two things this week. The coalition spoke about fingerprint verification, and AFC said we're not in the coalition no more. And then we understand that the leadership of the coalition, there is one school of thought that the AFC members must now relinquish their seat in Parliament. And I guess that's a fair position to have. And in fact, I wouldn't be entirely surprised where in the coming year, whether that is not in fact the position, and certainly before the next election, I expect all the AFC members to lose their seats in Parliament. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And there is, of course, another school of thought in the leadership, well, the AFC should keep their seat. But if I understand correctly who's on which side, I don't think that will be the case. But we'll get back to the issue of the coalition breaking up, which is not surprising in itself. The APNU AFC coalition stood in front of the world, not only the nation of Guyana, and in super slow motion, with cameras everywhere, tried to steal an election. And that's a tall order to recover from, but it's also a tall order to participate continuously with. My understanding is the AFC position is that, they will be continually pulled down by the PNC if they remain there, and it is in their best interest to try to recapture what they were prior to the coalition. I mean, all valid views, I guess, but you gotta look at it. Who's gonna forgive them for what they did? You think Guyanese people have such short memories? The Guyanese people would have trusted them in 2015, and look what they did. Not only did they mismanage the nation, not only did development totally stagnate, not only did they lose a no confidence motion, we then get to the position where they try to steal the election with everybody watching. No one's going to believe a single word they say, and it's their fault. But coming back to the issue of the list and wanting to have fingerprint verification, I mean, I'm thinking, why stop at fingerprint verification? We can do scans of the eye, retina scans, we could do DNA tests, we could do hair sampling, we could do, and why only fingers? We could do palm prints. Why not do all these things? it is utterly ridiculous. And if it weren't such a serious matter, it would be downright funny. The laws of Guyana are in place for everyone to obey. The Constitution of Guyana is the supreme law, and we must all follow it. I have gone through before chapter and verse, and it's worth repeating because we keep getting this, and people keep saying, well, oh, it should be fair, and oh, we would like this to be fair, and we would like that for it to be fair. It doesn't work that way. It's nothing to do with fairness. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's to do with the law. The law requires that you be a Guyanese citizen and you be registered on the voters list to be able to vote at an election. On election day, those are the requirements. There is no requirement, none, that you be resident in Guyana. And there is nothing wrong with that. There is no overseas voting in Guyana. So the Guyanese citizens who live in exile because of the 80s and they left the country, or whenever they left, for whatever reason, those people, there is no way that they would do postal voting. That was the way that Burnham rigged the elections in the 70s and 80s. So we have removed that, and it's now counting at the place of poll, which is another mechanism to ensure transparency. But the laws of Guyana, the Constitution says two things: resident and on the list, nothing else. Sorry, not resident. You must be a Guyanese citizen and on the list. Residency has no part. I stand corrected. Residency has no part to play. And we have to only obey two things. To be clear, Guyanese citizen on the list. Everything else, nothing else matters. And we must understand that residency is a red herring. All these things about fingerprint and all, that's a red herring. The list, when it is done, we've all done it. You have to go, you have to show your ID. It's a picture ID, you have to show all of that in the registration process. And when that happens, you get your name is placed on the list. Now, if someone is against you being on the list, they can object. And remember, they're talking about in the opposition, about all these people who are there, who are supposedly dead. Do you know, in the whole claims and objection period, there were two objections. Two. On the whole list, two. They claim the list is bloated and has people that shouldn't be there. Two objections, ladies and gentlemen. Two objections. Now, we understand that they will keep banging on this issue, even though it has no merit, it has no evidence to support it, and it is founded entirely in their warped imagination. Their twisted imaginations have come up with these issues. The law, ladies and gentlemen, is what we do. We cannot, you have to understand the basis of the development of the law. We know that the laws that started to change our electoral landscape came about in 1992 for the 1992 elections. And every election thereafter, it has been adjusted, bit by bit, step by step, making it better. In fact, I recall an observer from the European Union in the last election in 2020 saying that Guyana is like a garrison when it comes to elections. The unique paper, the multiple copies of statement of polls given to everyone in the room, posted, nailed and stuck to the door, the fact that observers from all the parties are allowed there, and they're in the room when the counting happens. They get a copy signed by everybody. All of these rules, the paper is like what you usually print money on. It's special paper with security features in it. All of these things. Then when you go to vote, there is a folio that they have, that's in the polling place, that all the party scrutineers can see. And it has your image on it. It has your picture so that they could see it. Most people have a form of identification, ID, passport. You could use whatever it is. All of these things are there. And then the number of SOPs, the number of sheets are closely guarded. You can't get extra ones. You can't get everybody in the room, all of those people to sign back on the pages. It's prepared with their 8 copies usually. You can't get these things back. And that is why the process as it exists is so secure. And saying that you want a new list is not provided for in the laws of Guyana. The law in Guyana provides that there shall be a system of continuous registration in Guyana. So it doesn't say house to house. Continuous registration, which is what is in the Act, must mean something. So what does it mean? Continuous registration means the process never stops. It goes on all the time. Except when GCOM will say we are extracting the list as of the 1st of October. That list will be valid for I believe the next 6 months. So, but it is very clear, continuous registration. Now, if the law prescribes continuous registration, then you can't discard any of the registration that you have. So in 2022, you can't discard the registration that took place before 2022 and start a whole new list, because that's not continuous. Continuous means those that are on that list and have been registered will join those that are coming to be registered. So the past list is what goes forward to meet the future. So that list that you have, continuous registration takes place. So that list is constantly being updated with names. So the list that was in 2019, what is added is the people who came and got registered in 2020. And then the people who came and registered in 2021 and 2022 going forward. The law has those exact words, continuous registration. As a result, no one is entitled, no one, not any public official, not the government, not GCOM, to decide we want to embark on a house-to-house process. There is no provision in the law for that to take place. So when you speak of bloated lists, that is a misnomer and it is false. The list is not bloated. The list has on it and reflects all the people who have demonstrated that they are Guyanese citizens and they went and they got registered. That is what is there. Nothing else. Now, we have to realize that when you say you use negative, pejorative terms like bloated, people think, well, oh, we don't want a bloated list. We want the list to reflect all, to be accurate. But the list is accurate. This is what you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen. The list is accurate and subject to constant scrutiny. The continuous registration process produces a list every time GCOM says, well, look, we will produce a list for the local government, the general elections, whatever it is. So a list is produced. When that list is produced, there is a claims and objection period. And the claims and objection period, there is the master list at GCOM. But in every community around Guyana, it is it is stock, it is printed and put usually at the post office, sometimes in schools, sometimes in the RDC or the NDC's office. It's usually put there. Anyone who wants to object can look at the name and say this person is dead, this person, this is false, that this address that you have here, this person doesn't live at that address. They are free to do so. And that is any citizen, anywhere in Guyana, you have the right to object. That is the law. You are permitted by law to object. When you object, then GCOM has to deal with it. If your objection has merit, the name is removed. If it does not have any merit, the name is not removed. Because this is Guyana, with our history and what happened with elections. We cannot, and it would be unsafe, and in my views, it would be counterproductive for us to allow any agency to remove names from the list. We remember what happened in 2020 in the lead up to the elections. It was as a result of a lot of litigation that was going on. I was involved in quite a bit of it, and what we were trying to do was we were trying to stop what Patterson, who was the unilaterally selected man to be the chairman of GCOM. We had that person wanting to go house to house and discard the previous list. We went to court to stop it. There were various things about it, but the Chief Justice made a ruling in one of those cases, and she said that house to house registration, it was not provided for in the law. We have a system of continuous registration. So Guyana's system is continuous, which means we can't discard anything that has gone before. Whatever new registrations take place are added to what was there. Now, we can't take away a citizen's right to vote. How could we do that? Everywhere in the world, well, nearly everywhere in the world, foreigners will live in your country, but they don't have the right to vote. You usually have the right to vote in your country, the country where you are a citizen. But usually, as happens in the United States and England and Canada, other places, they would be postal voting. So if you are resident overseas, you can request ballots. Some of them do it through their high commissions, or do it through their consular offices, or they will simply mail it to you directly. You fill it out, vote, and you mail it back. You do the mail-in ballots. That happens around the world. But in the 1970s, when Burnham was rigging the elections, one of the things they used to rig the elections was postal ballots. There were people, BBC did documentaries, and it's well documented. There were people supposedly living at Stables and King's Cross Station and other places like that we know to be patently false. And those people apparently voted in the elections. Their names were marked off as voted. There were a lot of people I know personally, who during those times said that they went to vote and they'd already voted. So there were different systems. Scrutineers were not permitted. The counting of the ballots were not in the place of poll. It was done at military headquarters and places like that. We have all the issues of the unrest. We had people in Crabwood Creek stealing the ballot boxes and throwing them overboard so that the police can't get it. Stories I know well. My grandfather was one of those people. But those things that went on don't go on now. And we do not allow for postal voting. We do not allow any citizen who's outside of Guyana to vote. He has to come here, he has to go to the place of poll with his name, and he has to vote there. Now, given that, the compromise position in our law was that we will not take away, or we will not have a requirement of residency, because it means that those who are overseas who want to come back and vote. So there is no requirement of residency because they can't stay where they are and vote by postal voting or other means. They have to come here. So there's no requirement. So when people tell you the list is bloated and people who are overseas voted, nonsense, utter trash. They tell you that, tell them it's a lie. Pure and simple, it's a lie. When they tell you the dead people vote, tell them only in their imagination. That too is a lie. Because we not only have the list when we do the SOPs with all the votes, we also have a sheet that outlines who were the electors that came that day. So they may be on the list, there may be 100 names, but everybody ticks off who came in that day to vote. And they might have only been 40. They might have only been 60. The others didn't turn up to vote because they got to bring their ID card and everybody is there. And when everybody is there, all the parties, APNU, PPP, all the other parties, they have the right for scrutineers. So you wouldn't let a name be marked off if you were a scrutineer if you don't see it. So the parties are an integral part of the process. They all sit around. When we go in, we recall that. They sit around from the parties, from GCOM, they all sit around in a room and they ask for your ID card and then somebody says your name very loudly and they all mark your name off on their list. So they know who the people that voted. This is not a secret. And to say that the list is bloated and you want fingerprints, maybe the fingerprints will stop the Russians that you are looking for. Maybe the fingerprints will assist you in locating those Russians who came here to try to steal an election by some computer means when the entire electoral voting process is paper and pencil. I don't know how that could happen. You see, we have what we can describe fairly as a primitive system of voting, where we have paper and pen. But the thing about that is that's immune to any form of hacking. No computer can interfere with that. No computerized system or program could interfere with that. So you see, that's why, as I said, one observer said to me that our voting system is strong as a garrison because there's so many duplications, there's so much check and balance, there's so many things. But again, ladies and gentlemen, you have to be vigilant. The civic duties that you have is to participate. I believe as a result of the last election and so much litigation, so much discussion of law, so much where people are now familiar with their rights, that we will have more participation in the election and we will have much more active participation across the country, which is good because everybody now will be looking and everybody's familiar with what the law is. But don't forget, all you need to be is a Guyanese citizen and on the list and you're entitled to vote. You have to make sure if you're a Guyanese citizen, you have to get on the list. There is of course the age requirement of being 18, that's it. And you are on the list, you're entitled to vote. No one can stop you. But don't fall prey to these nonsensical narratives. There is no bloated list. There is no list that needs to be sanitized. I mean, all these are terms that are designed by their negative connotations to infer that the list, the voters list, is in somehow deficient. It is not. And it is also to conjure in people's minds and their imaginations that there is something wrong. Because that's a very common emotion. When you don't quite understand something and somebody tells you, well, oh, you know, this and this makes it wrong, you think, well, oh, maybe he has a point. But I'm telling you, he has no point. They have no point. It is very straightforward. Our list is made up very simply You have to be a citizen and you have to go get registered. Once you do that, once you're a citizen and you go get registered and you're on the list, you can go and vote. Of course, there is the claims and objections period. And during that claims and objections period, you should be vigilant to ensure that there is nobody on the list that shouldn't be there. And everybody should do the same to you, to scrutinize you, the same way you scrutinize them. So that we have a list that is representative of the true electorate. Now, this is why the list is in the villages and on all the public places. So now I've tried to explain to you the whole ambit of it, so you understand what it is that's involved in making the list. Now, when you go with the list, you have to show that you're Guyanese, whether it's your birth certificate. You have to show identity, you have to have picture ID, you have to give an address where you are, and they will go and check that the address exists. They can't go and check whether anything is going on there. All GCOM will do is check that it exists. You understand the process that is involved. Now, GCOM scrutinizes all of that at the time that you are registered. And then when you are put on the list, every election, you and everybody else are equally subject to scrutiny, where people will look at your names. And the people who look at the names are the people in the communities. So they will know if you live there. If you say that you live in Diamond on 4th Street, Lot 10, and they say, no, this man don't be there. We don't know who this man is, so you could make an objection to that name. That's how it works. The people are the guard. That's how the system is designed. And then, of course, I went through with you what happens on election day. So don't believe that nonsense and diatribe and spinning this web about, oh, we're not going to contest the election because the list is not sanitized. The list is sanitized. The list is not prepared, and the list is not bendable to people who want to cheat and steal for an election. But again, AFC decides they don't want to now be part of a coalition, which is only indicative of a party that is really and truly dying. They have let down Guyana. They have been not kept their word. They have been part of a horrific attempt to steal the election, and the party is on its way out, perhaps. Maybe that's where we're at. Now, there is one other issue, one last issue, that I want to raise with you, and that is what is going on as a result of the weather. Now, I want to implore upon you, all of you. We know that the weather is changing. We know climate change is a factor. We know we're getting heavier rainfall. We don't seem to have clear seasons. But we can't keep dumping garbage into the trenches. We have got to improve on that, because it blocks the drains, it blocks the cocas, it blocks all of the drainage and irrigation to get there. It blocks the pumps. We've seen pictures on social media. His Excellency the President, he showed just how many tires keep going in there and blocking up the effectiveness of the pumps working. Now, these are things we got to get better at. We can't keep doing this. We are going to have rainfall from, I am no expert, but I would guess that the Christmas rains, the December rains are here now. And we're going to have rainfall from now until Christmas and perhaps even a little after. So it's very important, very, very important. Let us try and do our best to not to not litter and to not keep throwing garbage into our canals and our roadways and just dumping. I mean, for those of you who are sports fans, and I am a sport fan and the World Cup is on and we're watching, it is an astonishing thing that the Japanese fans go to a stadium and clean up after themselves. And they are now well known across the world for doing this. An entire people is known for disposing of their litter properly when they go to sport events. They did it in Russia, they did it in Brazil, and of course with social media these things started to spread more, and that's how we got to know about it. But it's now every Japanese who goes to the football as a badge of honor. I saw interviews on BBC and Al Jazeera where they were saying this is what it is. So they might not be the greatest footballers, but they're playing good football. They beat Germany. But they are known that before they leave the stadium, they get the garbage bags, they put all the garbage in, they tie it up, they leave it. It's an amazing thing that an entire nation could be known for something so significant. And in Guyana, I want to say, and I want to beg all of you to please, especially with the rainy season on, we know there are going to be challenges. We know that there are challenges. We've seen headlines where the mayor and town council can't account for hundreds of millions of dollars that they've received. We see the state that the city is in, but we can assist by not dumping things into the garbage and into the drains and clogging the drains and doing that. Let's do our best, please, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do our very best to make that not be the case, and to do the best we can to help those men and women and Minister Zulfikar, who is everywhere trying to keep us from flooding and doing his very best. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight with me, for sharing the last hour or thereabouts with me, whether you did so on social media, whether you did so from watching NTN television. I am very grateful that you are here, and as usual, be careful, and God bless you, and may your God be with you. Good night.